All right, so this is a presentation on Sturnus Cave. Where is Sturnus Cave? Sturnus is on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah, I dropped a point here so you can see it's kind of on the southeast corner of the island. And it's in a mountain range called the White Mountains. Yep. So this is just a history on the cave. It was found in the 80s and then explored into the 90s by a team of French cavers, and they got to about 400 meters in depth. At that point, they reached a section of two tight meanders, and they just left the cave. They didn't have a GPS, obviously, in that time, so the cave location was lost. The White Mountains there are very similar to the karst and like the Bob, where there's just kind of holes everywhere. So without a GPS point, it was pretty hard to locate the cave location, and it was forgotten. And so the Cretan cavers started an effort to relocate that cave, and in 2009 they found it again. And since 2009 they've been doing expeditions there on and off. They re-explored the cave and re-rigged the whole thing to 400 meters into 2017. And then in 2018, they had a big international team come, and there were some Romanians that spent basically the entire time blasting through this too tight meander at the 400 meter level. At the end of the expedition, they got to a 60-meter pit, and the cave continued. Or sorry, that was in 2019, I guess. But yeah, and so then in 2021, there was still some COVID stuff, so the expedition was pretty small, and there's just local Greeks that went. And they were able to do some more re-rigging, and then they explored one of the passages at the bottom, which ended in a sump at about 600 meters. So yeah, this is the cave club that organizes it over there in Greece. They're based on the island of Crete. They're really awesome, really friendly people. And yeah, in Heraklion, they have a little basement that they rent, and this is the sign above the basement there. So I traveled with Tristan Stahl. He's out of Denver, Colorado. Just got plucked out of Mill Creek with a helicopter. We were in Turkey before this, and we traveled directly from Turkey to Greece. So yeah, we just flew into Greece, and then we took a ferry to Athens. And one of the Greek cavers put us up in their house, or sorry, from Athens to Heraklion, and then in Heraklion we got put up in a house by a Greek caver. So that was really nice of him. And then, yeah, we were there a few days early, so we kind of helped Spock pack from their basement into the vehicles that they had, and we drove about 2 hours from Heraklion down to Annapolis, and that's kind of the town closest to the cave. So yeah, these are just some pictures of there. You can see that sign here, and the basement's right there. And there's some pictures from the basement. They have quite the stockpile of history and gear there. This is like a little museum they had. And then the assortment of gear, a lot of the Greeks are pretty poor, and so they do they have this gear cave that they use, and people just take gear from there and return it to there. So it's kind of like a shared gear collection. All right, and so yeah, we drove down to Annapolis. It's a very small town. There's like a bakery and a hotel. And both the bakery owner and the hotel owners know these Greek cavers. They come there quite often. And so yeah, they stop at the bakery, and we have these little pies that are filled with cheese, and you put honey on top of them. They're really good. And I'm completely blanking on what they're called, but yeah, there's all of us just kind of joining. So there were about 40 to 50 people on the expedition total. Only a handful of those people were actually doing the exploration and the rigging. Most of, as I said, it's kind of that shared gear. And so a lot of people come up after they get trained, because it's Europe and they get trained in SRT. And they use these skills in this cave while it's rigged. And so yeah, you can see here there's a huge group of people, but it was just like a constant kind of rotation of people coming up for the weekend or a day or two, and names were learned and then names were forgot. And there's a lot of countries represented. There was Tristan and I from the US. There were a couple of French and Italians that traveled together. We had one guy from England, a few folks from Israel, Australia, and then plenty of people from Greece, of course. That's what I just said, yeah. So there's a group of Greek cavers about to head into the cave and test out their new SRT skills. And yeah, I said there's a bakery and a hotel. So the hotel owners have these 4-wheel drive trucks. We throw all the gear in the back, and then they drive us up and drop us off at base camp. From the hotel, it's maybe 2 hours to base camp. Some of us rode in the back of the trucks. Just some pictures of the drive up. It was a little rainy when we drove up. Yeah, and this is the base camp. It's just we drop all the bags on the side of the road, and then we set up base camp right on the side of the hill, and the cave's right there. So there's no hiking. We can just take it off the trucks and essentially set it up. So this is looking from the road up the hill where base camp is. There's a bunch, it's not very flat, so there's a bunch of tent platforms we had to build. And then the kitchen and kind of gathering area is this little ravine here. And then the cave is maybe up here somewhere. So you can see it's all really close. It's a crazy landscape up there. The White Mountains are just like, there's almost no vegetation. It's all rocks. Base camp. We had some nice moon rises. The reason that, so they go in September is when we were there. I don't know if I said that, but they do that because of the weather window that they have. September is the best time, but they do occasionally get really, really strong wind. And Tristan's tent got just completely flattened one night by the wind. And yeah, this is the kitchen area. They do a fully functional like base camp kitchen. Big meals are prepared for everybody. There's a breakfast and a dinner prepared, and then lunch is kind of on your own, but they provide all the food, and it's all in this kitchen area. Just some pictures of the kitchen there. And the shade tarp. The shade tarp above the kitchen is very important. And it was all fresh food. So yeah, just some. The Greeks love to eat. It's very good. All right, so the caving. So step one was to re-rig the cave. And so they did it, 2 people went in. This is Tristan and Keith, I believe, going in. And they sent 2 people in to rig the cave. They have it in bags, like here's the rope that you need, here's the bolts that you need. You just kind of rappel, tie knots, and keep going. And they do like an 8-hour push and then come out, and a second team goes in after them and continues. So it's kind of nonstop, which is really nice between the 2 teams. And it allows a lot of rigging to get done pretty fast. And then we also rigged a phone line. And yeah, by September 3rd, the cave was ready to explore. I think we got there maybe the 1st of September, so it was a pretty quick process. Sorry, that's Keith and Tristan going in with the ropes to rig. So what's the cave like? So it's almost from the surface down to the 600-meter level. It's pretty much straight vertical. You're on rope nearly the entire time. There's some meanders, but even in some of the meanders, they ran a rope through it because there's such short meanders. And all the pits are pretty, there's nothing like tight. For the most part, it's all big, open, just dropping straight down. Yeah, and then you get to the 538-meter level, and they just have a little warming shelter there. And from there, there's some horizontal passage, and that's where we were exploring this year. And yeah, it's similar to here. The caves are probably a little bit warmer, but about the same temperature, roughly 40 degrees Fahrenheit, like an alpine cave. And there's very few formations in this cave. This is just some of the alpine rigging. They used a lot of Dyneema. I love Dyneema now in a variety of ways, from just like extending it from bolts. They did rock threads as well, where you just drill in a fin of rock and then thread some Dyneema through it. Hundreds of reblays and redirects, obviously. This is a good picture. You can see that, the phone lines here. I don't know how many of you guys have, this was my first extended experience with phone line in a cave. But yeah, you can see the phone line running here, and then just some of the rigging. The phone line can get in the way a lot. And then this is the warming shelter at 538 meters. And there's a little, just like a stove with some ramen and tea, basically. And usually they go down, explore, come back to the warming shelter, warm up there before they take the trip out. I felt like it was just a waste of time, but they were very, had to sit down and have their tea and ramen. Yeah, so the phones. Yeah, I got to run some of the phone lines, so I was pretty interested in it. Like I said, it was my first experience with phone line, but they had a pretty simple setup. It was literally just a phone, as compared to some other expeditions like Chevy that might have really complex things. There was at designated points, there was phones in the cave. Every time you passed the phone on the way down or the way up, you called in. There was always somebody at base camp there to record where you were, just so we could keep track of people and for emergencies. And the caving. So yeah, we went to the bottom and we were exploring. Most of the effort was put into, the horizontal at the bottom kind of has an upstream and a downstream. Most of the effort was put into the downstream because they were trying to make the cave deeper. And they explored and explored and explored, but it ultimately all ended in kind of two tight passages at the bottom. Yeah, one of the last days, however, yeah, these are some pictures first from the downstream. It is mostly walking. There's a few short rope pitches. It's also of note, in this downstream, there was a lot of aragonite. Aragonite everywhere. Like, you kind of had to step on aragonite to explore in some spots. Just completely covered the walls. This is a pretty good picture kind of demonstrating that. Some close-ups of the aragonite. That's Tristan in one of the worst parts of the cave downstream, a little mud crawl that you go through. Yeah, like I said, they explored this downstream September 3rd to September 6th, and all the leads were exhausted, no way on was found. And so then we finally decided, okay, let's go upstream. And we did a little 3-meter climb, and we broke through into this big complex of horizontal passages. Some of the biggest passage I had found at the time is just incredible. You can see there, he's looking into the blackness above. We didn't have that much camera gear, so it was hard to get a good picture, but yeah, there's kind of a maze of these big passages in this area. And let's see here. So yeah, we surveyed over 1/2 kilometer that day. We found the first, so these trips to the bottom to explore were getting to, like, some people were taking 20 hours from surface back to surface. So it's pretty exhausting. And it was really awesome. We ended up finding a perfect camp location, just a little round room with a sand floor, and there's water just down the way. They documented 8 to 10 more pits that continue down. This horizontal passage has a lot of other infeeders entering it, and then just kind of cutting through it and continuing down. And that's what they're looking for, ways down. So they were pretty excited about that. And then some of the biggest displays of aragonite were in this new section. And yeah, it was a 13-hour trip when we went in and found this area. These are some of the longest aragonite arms you can see there. There's also a lot of black-coated aragonite. I'm not sure if anybody else has seen that in a cave. I had never seen it in a cave, and I've talked to some people about it since then, and it seems pretty interesting. I don't know if it's coated in something, if it's actually growing with the black, but it's not like calcite covered. It's aragonite. The tip is white like normal, but the rest of the body is completely covered in black. Some vertical aragonite, some horizontal. This is the camp location. Somebody demonstrating. All right, so yeah, after we went in and found all that, 2 more teams went in, and they focused on one of the biggest passages that continued, and they found a 30-meter pit is where they left it. So, I mean, that's a big going lead. They're really excited about it. Something I don't think I mentioned is that the 2 deepest caves in Greece are actually on the island of Crete, and they sit almost 500 meters, the entrances sit almost 500 meters in elevation lower than this entrance. And so this entrance sits just above 2,000 meters in elevation, and has potential to go to sea level. So there is pretty significant depth potential, if not all the way to the 2,000 meters, at least deeper than the other deep caves there. So that's kind of why they're interested in this particular cave and put so much effort in it to relocate it. So here's a map. I found out that the Europeans, or at least these Europeans, really didn't care about the cartography at all. They just wanted the numbers, like the depth and the length. And some of the sketches were pretty, worse than they were in the 1950s in the United States. So, but yeah, there's over 1,250 meters of horizontal passage that we added, and most of that's this red passage you see. This is where that warming shelter I was talking about was, right here where the vertical and the horizontal meet. And this is what most of the expedition did, explored all this downstream. And then that breakout is kind of this stuff right here. And yeah, as you can see, it's, like I said, it's just vertical until you get there. Here is some of the poor cartography. This is a plan view overlaid onto the satellite image. So you can see the road here, and then yeah, camp's right here, the entrance is here, I believe. And then yeah, this is that horizontal stuff we found, going left to right. There's a lot of other activities. You know, everybody wasn't always in the cave, just like any other trip, ridge walking. There are a few pitch heads, like the top of pitches that were pretty tight, so they spent some time enlarging those, and then enlarging some more of the meanders. Summiting mountains, hanging out at camp. Especially the trips, like I said, were 20 hours, so there were some late nights where you just hung out at camp with somebody and kept the food warm until the cavers got out. Some ridge walking pictures. Lots of lead checking. We used a lot of the 8mm pulses. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with those. But this was my first extended experience with them, and I love them. They're awesome. But yeah, they're really nice to just check all these surface pits if there's not natural anchors. We tried to use natural anchors as much as possible. Some more lead checking. They have a pretty bad inventory of all of their features and caves up there as well, so it's a lot of kind of reinvestigation. Oh, there's an old spit here. You know, somebody's been here. But there really are just thousands of holes everywhere. This is just the summit of one of the mountains there. You can see the ocean out there. And this pretty much gives you a 360-degree view of the island. It's one of the taller mountains. So that was a really cool day trip I did. This is just hanging out at camp, I guess. Some more hanging out at camp. And then they de-rigged the entire cave at the end too, which went a lot faster than I thought it would have. Yeah, so all the rope above 400 meters came out, and it took one day with 2 teams doing it. And then there's a big gear sorting day and knot untying episode at the top. And then we packed up and headed home. Same way, the hotel owners come back up, we throw everything in the truck and they take us down. And we hit one traffic jam on the way down. There's some sheep. Lots of sheep and goats that just kind of roam around up there. I think that's part of the reason the mountains don't have that much vegetation. A lot of the Greeks are saying that there actually used to be at least more vegetation than there is now, but it just got overgrazed so much that it's rock, all rock up there. Yeah, and so I actually applied for an international exploration grant this year and was awarded $800 from the NSS, so we're going to use that to help the Greeks buy some rope for this expedition, and it'll be dedicated to that cave. And yeah, we're going back in September. So, is there any questions? Yeah. Do you have issues with language barrier stuff? Not really. A lot of people know. What was the question? Oh yeah. So he asked if I had language barrier issues. A lot of them complained that they had to speak English, but pretty much everybody spoke English, and that's generally how it is. I feel really stupid because I only know English, and they have like 3 languages that they're just changing between, but yeah. I'm not entirely sure about the rainfall. There is actually snow up there. That was something I was interested to learn. You know, it's an island in the Mediterranean, but they get snow in the winter, so. No, what? No, it's everything goes straight underground, yeah. Yeah, but it's just an 8mm hole. You only need to drill it, and I don't know, it's pretty short too. And then you can pull it in and out, so. And if you can pack the hole with dirt if you want. Anything else? Yeah?
Did you happen to see, when we were there in
Okay.
Half decayed.
It was
Seriously.
really.
Seriously. And then there was a photo from maybe the cave entrance looking down, and it mentioned what a horrible hiking. You could see the cars. You saw here. This was so far from the from the cars to the jet. So I suspect that was a magazine photographer.
Exaggerating, yeah.
Complaining. You never walked that far uphill.
Great. Anything else? All right. Well, thanks for listening.